friends, it's me, Pastor Doug, with another word of encouragement for the day for today, Wednesday, February 9th. And today's word comes out of the book of Luke, chapter 10, verses 34 and 35. And in it, we continue our I Dare You series, where we've been exploring 6 practices designed to help us connect more deeply with God. We've talked about prayer, we've talked about reading the Bible, we've talked about Sabbath, and this week we're talking about service, serving others as a way to connect more deeply with God. And this weekend on Sunday, Pastor Brian talked about serving, and he said something that's really been resonating with me. He said that true service rarely comes at a convenient time. Another way to say that would be that real service is usually inconvenient. And there's this great story that Jesus tells. It's a parable that Jesus tells in Luke chapter 10 that probably all of us are familiar with. It's the parable of the Good Samaritan. And in that story, there is a Jewish man that's traveling from Jericho to Jerusalem and kind of going up this really treacherous road. It was a well-known road at that time. And on his way, he gets jumped, he gets beat up, all of his clothes are taken, all of his money is taken, and he just gets left there naked to die. And there's a priest that comes along the road that's on the way to the temple in Jerusalem to serve and sees the guy and goes around him. There's a Levite, which is another person that sort of served in the temple. When he saw the man, he went around the other side. And of course, we know kind of how the story climaxes, right? That there's this Samaritan man, which the Jews and the Samaritans didn't get along. So Jesus is kind of making a point in using a Samaritan as sort of the hero of this story. But the Samaritan man, when he sees the man lying there naked and bleeding and close to death, actually stops. And I want to read to you what this man does in Jesus's parable. Jesus retells the story this way. He says, "The man went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey," which means that he had to walk because the man was riding his donkey, and he brought him to an inn and took care of him. The next day, that means he stayed an entire night. The next day, he took out 2 denarii, which the equivalent of 2 days' wages. And so if you make a couple $100 a day, this would have been like $400. And he gives it to the innkeeper with these instructions. "Look after him," he said, "and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have." What I want to point out here is there was nothing convenient about this for this Samaritan man. First of all, he's helping a Jewish traveler. Second of all, the Samaritan man was on his way somewhere. You know how it is when you're on your way somewhere. You got to get to the grocery store, you got to get to school, or you're trying to get to work, or you're trying to get to your kids' games. You know what it's like when you're on your way somewhere and there's a delay, traffic, or you run into somebody and they stop you in the middle of the grocery store for 15 minutes and you're like, now I'm going to be late, right? We don't like getting interrupted, particularly in America. We're sort of fastidious about our time and timekeeping and staying on track and staying on time. A lot of us are sort of wired that way. For this man, he was interrupted. He was on his way somewhere and he allowed this need to interrupt his travel. Now, we don't know where he was going exactly or exactly what he was on his way to go do, but suffice to say that he was on his way somewhere to do something, and this need presented itself, and he allowed himself to be inconvenienced. In fact, he took the man to an inn, walked while the man rode the donkey, paid the innkeeper, stayed with him overnight to make sure that he was okay, promised the innkeeper to come back and pay even more. I mean, this is no small chunk of change. 2 days worth of income is a big deal for most people, and it certainly would have been for this guy, and yet he was willing to be inconvenienced in order to meet the need that presented itself. Friends, this is true service. And when we serve people that way, in a way that inconveniences us, it's a way of elevating other people. And it's a way of following in the footsteps of Jesus and living the way that Jesus lived. Friends, may you and I walk in that kind of service this week. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.